Welcome back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame for another edition of our Before the Snap series. Today, featuring the communications coordinator from the Minnesota Vikings, Taylor Garner. Taylor, we're super excited to have you today, and we'll get to you here in a minute. But for everybody tuned in today, first and foremost, what is Before the Snap? If you haven't watched this before, Before the Snap is a program we put in place to showcase all the cool and unique jobs there are in and around the sport of football and the NFL. From communications to community relations to social media, there are so many cool and unique jobs out there, and we want to showcase some of the best ones and some career paths that maybe you watching may take one day. If you've tuned into this before, you definitely know what's in store, and we're super excited to have you tuned in again. As always, my name is Jake Wright. I'm the Youth and Education Manager here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, and we are super excited for another Before the Snap program. At the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it's our mission to honor the greatest of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence together. And those values we promote are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, honesty, all of which make our Hall of Famers great football players, but also makes me a great employee, can make you a great student, and make anybody you hear from today the best person that they can be. So these values are super important, not only to make you a great athlete, but to make you a great person as well. And you'll hear them pop up throughout the program today because that's just how important that they are. Before we do get started, some thank yous I'd like to pass out first and foremost to our special guest today. Taylor, thank you so much for being part of the program and taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us today. Secondly, I'd like to thank all the teachers, administrators, educators, professors, anybody that shared this out with their students right now and watching us live, or you're watching us 6 months from now in your classroom. We want to thank you for allowing us to just be a small part of your students' learning experience. And lastly, students, we're here for you. This is a program that doesn't take place without your interaction. You know, I always say I have a bunch of questions I'm ready to ask, and I've got them here in front of me, and I'm ready to go. But the program is put in place for students to be able to interact and ask questions. So if you're watching us today, let us know where you're watching from. Even if you don't have a question, tell us your name, the school you go to in the live chat. But if you do have a question, make sure you post that in there as well. Nathan's in another room watching that live chat, and he's going to be asking all of our student questions today. So make sure you get those student questions submitted. Let us know your name, the school you go to, and then go ahead and ask your question. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special guest today. Ms. Taylor Garner is the current communications coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. She began working for the Vikings in 2021 as a communications associate before being hired full-time to the club prior to the 2022 NFL season. With the Vikings, she helps promote the organization both on and off the field. Prior to her time with the Vikings, she interned for ESPN in their communications department and assisted them in publicizing shows and talent in both collegiate and professional sports. She also interned for the Walt Disney Company, our second person actually this year that we've had on the show that worked for Walt Disney Company, on the sports brand solutions team, where she was able to find ways to promote and activate brands in the college sports space. She received her Bachelor of Arts in Communication from Mississippi State University. So I'm pretty sure the SEC football world is going to come up a little bit today, where she worked as a communications student worker in the school's athletic department before going on to receive her Master's of Art in Advertising and PR from the University of Alabama, where she interned in the Athletic Communications Office as well as the university's College of Nursing. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Taylor to Before the Snap.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, and I'm ready to get started.
Awesome. Well, as again, I'll repeat, just thank you so much for being a part of the program today. We greatly enjoy getting to talk with all the different people we do in and around the NFL. So we're super excited to hear your story, a little bit about your job, and that's right where we're starting with the program here today. Can you tell us what a day-to-day life looks like for a communication coordinator with an NFL team? And let's focus on what are some of the things you're working on now, and then we'll focus on kind of what that job looks like when you're actually in season.
Yeah, I think the really unique thing about working in the communications field is that no 2 days are the same, and that's what I think I love the most about working in communications. Right now in the off season, we're prepping for the draft. Kind of still in the middle of free agency, so we've had some free agent signings, but and then right now we're working on building out our media guide, which we'll send out, later in the summer. But just kind of prepping for the draft and OTAs, rookie mini camp, things like that. So that's kind of what my off season looks like right now. in season. It's a little bit different. We kind of have a set schedule and a sense of things that we do during the week. Our Mondays are usually where we have some availabilities. We make our head coach available, and some other players. And then we also work on a weekly release that we have, which is about a 400 or so page document that kind of encapsulate things like what to look for in the game, previews the matchup each week, and then kind of updates our records and histories as the season goes on. So that's kind of what our Monday and Tuesday look like. And then Tuesdays, we usually have a community event. So our players will go out into the community. So I go on site to help with media access that anybody who wants to cover that community event. And kind of the rest of the week is prepping for the game on Sunday. So yeah, that's kind of a week or day in the life as a coordinator.
Awesome. So, when you hear communications coordinator, first thing that comes to mind is PR releases, stories, writing. Is that what you do on a day-to-day basis, or is that just kind of the stereotypical response when you hear somebody who works with a job like yours?
No, that's exactly right. We do a lot of different types of writing, which is really unique. We kind of have those more, football transactional releases where we're promoting the guys that we've signed. And then we have more of those like promoting the community events that they do. And then also kind of like if we hire a new coach, we write a lot on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I think writing is a huge part of my role, especially and also with helping prep coaches and players for interviews as well. Those requests that come across. So kind of previewing anticipated, questions that they might get asked. So yeah.
Did you have a passion for writing? Was that something you enjoyed growing up, or is it just something that you kind of developed once you got into college and into the professional space?
Yeah, growing up, my favorite classes were anywhere that I could write. I loved being able to express myself through my writing. And so that's something that I grew up doing. I used to actually, as a child, try to write my own plays. So like it started out pretty young with writing, and then it just kind of grew from there.
Now, when it comes to writing, obviously, like, you're writing stories for the website and the team and publications that are getting pushed out there. How important is it to keep in mind that you're telling a story? You may be reporting what happened at the game, and in today's world and social media and everything, people are getting those results in time as they happen live throughout social media. So for you, as somebody who reports after the fact, after everybody already knows that information, or at least at the surface level of that information, how do you continue to make sure that you're developing and writing things and including things in a storytelling that people cannot get, when they're going right onto their phones and seeing everything live?
Yeah, storytelling is huge. We want to make sure that we tell the full story of, any player or coach, kind of diving deep into their background, some different things that, on the field aspects of their career, as well as some things that they may be interested in off the field as well. So I guess that's a huge part of storytelling, and just making sure that we can connect our fans and the community best with our players and coaches.
What would you say your favorite part of getting to do the job that you get to do? Obviously, there's so many things outside of the day-to-day life, what's on your job description that you get to be a part of. But when it boils down to it, is it just the fact that you're getting to do what you have a passion for and write and report on things that you like to do? Is that kind of the motivation for you right now?
Yeah, I love writing. And I think a huge passion of mine is promoting and telling stories for people. I love doing that. So being able to do that as a career is huge. I do have a passion for storytelling. And then I guess another favorite part of mine is really just the people that I get to meet and the relationships that I build, whether it's with players, coaches, staff members as well, different media members. I mean, those relationships go a long way, and I love building and maintaining those relationships. So I think the different people that I get to meet through this job is probably one of my favorite aspects of it.
Was working in sports something you always wanted to do? Was that the end goal, or was it as long as I'm writing and reporting and getting to do what I'm passionate for, it doesn't matter where it's at? You happen to be, in the NFL right now?
Yeah, I think I've always wanted to be in the sports industry. I grew up an athlete, so I grew up watching, the NFL, the NBA, and I just I loved sports, and so being able to kind of take my athletic background and kind of make that into a career and kind of connect that with my passion for storytelling. I mean, that was huge. I actually did start out at one point. I did think that I wanted to be a teacher for a little bit. So that kind of changed when I realized, what, like sports is where my heart lies. And, I want to be able to have a career in it. So, yeah.
Now we read through your bio. Obviously, you spent a lot of time. You said before we got started off camera that you grew up in Mississippi, went to Mississippi State, got your master's at Alabama. So obviously, your majority of your life was spent, as we joke, down in SEC country. How tough was the transition to a totally different region of the country? Definitely a different climate when you move up north to Minnesota to work for the Vikings. How difficult is that transition? And why is it important for somebody maybe to step outside their comfort zone and get out of where they're used to being and take a journey like that?
Yeah, I think the biggest change for me was definitely the weather. It took me the longest time to actually get a coat because I was like, there's no way. Like I've heard that it's cold, but I was like, it doesn't get that cold. Like it's not that bad. But no, I mean, I actually have learned to love the snow and the cold. I think growing up in the South, like the heat was all that I knew. So coming up here and being able to bundle up before I go outside, I actually really do love it. I think it's really important for someone to branch out and kind of get a different sense of how a different like community and environment is. I think that kind of helps you to grow as a person. And then for me, like professionally as well, being able to come up here and out of SEC country, it's a little bit different, but I'm still SEC all the way, even though I'm up in Minnesota. But yeah, I think it's extremely important for someone to have different experiences and kind of branch out from being in that comfort zone of being home and close to family. But I'd say being away from family is a little bit probably one of the challenging things. But I mean, my family's super supportive, and I've been able to go home a few times. They've been able to come here, so yeah.
Very cool. All right. I got a note here from Nathan. We got some questions on the YouTube chat already for our students who tuned in early. Thank you so much for doing that. So we're going to throw it out to Nathan for a couple questions from our students.
Yeah, Jake, thank you so much. And Taylor, thanks for being a part of the program today. I'm going to dive right into our student questions. First one comes from Ethan, who's a student at Puget Sound College, and he is curious. He's never played football. He wants to work for a football organization. Do you think not having the experience of playing would hold him back or put him in a position where maybe he wouldn't be considered? And kind of what advice would you give Ethan to kind of position himself to maybe get a job in the football world?
Yeah, I mean, I myself did not play football, so if that kind of helps you a little bit, but I know a lot of people in the organization haven't played football or even sports in general. I think that as long as you have this passion for the sports industry and for football, I think that goes a long way. I think as far as getting into the industry, if there are opportunities for you to get involved with your like sports athletic department or your school's athletic department, I think that's huge. And just kind of connecting with people on LinkedIn too, if you know kind of the route that you want to go, definitely, kind of search those people up, reach out and see like, hey, like I just want to talk to you 15 minutes, about what you do. I'm just kind of figuring out my career path, and you'd be surprised at how open people are and how much time they'll take to really talk to you about your career path and your journey and what you want to do. And, it's been a huge help for me. And so, yeah, I feel like it'd be a huge help for you.
So Taylor there mentioned, connecting on LinkedIn and building a network and using those connections, those relationships to benefit you in your career. And I just want to let the students know and encourage them, in the chat on YouTube, we've put a link that takes you directly to Taylor's LinkedIn page. So feel free to utilize that and connect with her. I'm sure she would love that. And we'll answer any questions that maybe we don't get to in the program. But the next question we have is from a student named Remy from USC. out in sunny Southern California, so not in Minnesota. Different climate. We keep talking about climates today. This is kind of, it's not a weather, show, but whatever. Remy, USC wants to know, the industry is obviously male dominated. Have you ever felt like you weren't taken seriously, or had a seat at the table? And then kind of how do you deal with that? And how do you see that working in the Minnesota Vikings organization?
Yeah, I love California. So you're in a great, great, great state. But I would say as being a woman in a male dominated industry, there are, some challenges with trying to, kind of get your foot at the door or being heard. I think that the biggest thing that all women should do, especially in any industry, but especially in the sports industry, is continue to speak up, use your voice. You'd be surprised at how many people are actually very receptive to what you have to say. And I think stressing the importance of having a different perspective is huge. And I think that's what I really love about the Vikings organization, is that everyone is so receptive to different perspectives within the organization, different backgrounds, different, ideas that people bring, whether you're a man or woman. I think that that's a huge part of why I love working for this organization. So I'd say just continue to make your voice heard and be persistent in what you have to say, but just keep striving to get your foot in the door and your seat at the table, because I think that all women are very powerful, and so I feel like the more that you can use your voice, the better.
No doubt, no doubt. And I love how you kind of talked about how each of us, man or woman, we have different perspectives, we have different backgrounds, and we bring something to the table that no one else can bring. So it's on us to make sure that we bring our best version, and that we are willing to offer our input and insight to benefit the organizations that we're a part of. So great question there, Remy. And thank you, Ethan, for your question. I want to encourage the rest of the students that are watching, continue to use the chat function, put your name in there, the school that you're attending. We want to hear your questions. We love your questions. So continue to interact in that way. But for now, I'm going to send it back to Jake.
All right, thank you, Nathan. And again, students, I'll reiterate what Nathan just said. Get those questions in. We want to see how many awesome questions we can get from the students we have tuned in today. And Taylor, kind of following up on some of that, you talked about being a woman who works in a male-dominated industry. Looking at your job and your role specifically, growing up, did you have mentors or somebody you looked up to who was kind of one of the first to break through that barrier, working in the male-dominated industry, a reporter, a writer, somebody who kind of influenced your career and helped you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think Maria Taylor's probably someone that in college and I kind of grew up, or not grew up, but I was watching her and seeing how, she used her voice in, reporting on, different sports and things. Most people don't think that, a woman really knows much about, sports, specifically football, and, kind of seeing her use her knowledge and not being afraid to say her piece and say her opinions on things. I think that was huge. So Maria really inspired me through school and still now to this day. But I'd say she was probably someone that inspired me.
Awesome. Well, we deal with inspiration a lot here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, so we know exactly what you're talking about. From the Hall of Famers who played the game and inspired the generation of today's players to some of today's players on the field. And I'm going to use that segue to get to the next part we're going to want to do, is because part of what we do here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame at our core is that we're a museum. So we're honoring the greatest to ever play the game, and we're preserving their history. It's part of what our mission is here at the Hall of Fame. So what better way to showcase that mission than actually go out live to the museum, to the Director of Youth and Education here at the Hall of Fame, Jerry Shockey, who's in front of some very recent Minnesota Vikings artifacts. You're going to talk a little bit about them and why they're on display. So Jerry, whenever you're ready, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Jake. And thank you, Taylor, for taking time out of your busy day to connect with students all across the country. I want to remind the students that are tuned in from across the country, make sure you submit your questions. This is all about you guys here today, learning about the industry, how to get into it, how you can prep yourself, all those kind of things. So make sure you submit those questions, and also make sure you connect with Taylor afterwards and with us as well, so you can begin that networking phase of your life if you haven't already. So today, a lot of times you think of the Hall of Fame, you think of a museum, you think of historic things, you think of old time stuff, and certainly that is the case. But we also on a regular basis are collecting artifacts, and we do use the word artifact. So you might think of a Picasso painting or a dinosaur bone, you think of an artifact. Well, we think of Kirk Cousins' jersey as an artifact. And so we are constantly throughout the season, almost on a weekly basis, getting things from certain milestones and things that have taken place, whether it's something you can plan for or whether it's something that's unplanned for like this. And so you see the jersey from Kirk Cousins, you see the shoe from Greg Joseph to win that game, the jersey when they came back from 33-0. And Taylor, I just have a question for you from a communications perspective. You know, especially in the media, you know, the idea is to try to be the first one to get the story out, get the news out, those kind of things. With something like this, now we, as a staff, Jake, myself, and Nathan, we get to work in the press box every year in the Hall of Fame games. We're very familiar with the press box, the media, and even the team's PR staff and stories, things that are being typed up. But I'm kind of curious about something like this. You know, number one, I guess two-part question. Number one, during the game, are you already preparing your story based on what's happening? So you just have to kind of fill in the things so you can get that out right away. Right after the game is concluded. And if that was the case, did you have to kind of go back and be like, man, they came back and won that? And then B, you know, what happens with something unplanned like this when it's something you can't really plan for and get that story kind of pre-prepared? You know, how do you do that within the organization?
Yeah, well, specifically for my role on game days, I usually will, you know, research different statistics that, you know, or like different notes that we can put out to promote our team. I don't usually write like the, you know, recap story for it, but I know I kind of work hand in hand with our writers that do. But preparing for something like this it was really cool, honestly, like seeing how, you know, how much drive and how much dedication and how our team like really just does not give up. And that was really, really cool experience to be a part of. And it was fun second half, finding a lot of different notes to promote our guys and to put out there to the media so that they can, you know, best cover our team and promote our team as well. So yeah, it was huge. And then as far as like post game, we kind of prepped them for post game interviews. And so like hearing them being like, whoa, like that was the greatest comeback like in NFL history. And we're like, yeah, like they're like, that's so cool. And so like you heard them, you know, talking to different media members, talking about how awesome it was and how blessed they were to be a part of that. And it was a really cool opportunity.
And something you touched on there, and if you can elaborate on that a little bit with folks tuning in here today. You said obviously you're communications, but you said you're not actually writing the story that's going up, but obviously that story funnels through the communications department to make sure it's conveying the right things. Can you talk about some of those, you know, how you guys work together in that?
Yeah, so we actually have a kind of running chat on game day with our different writers and our PR staff. So we, you know, throughout the game, we'll send different milestones that could possibly come up, you know, and before the game, actually, I researched throughout the week some different things. If they break, you know, a team record or, you know, NFL record, possibly kind of looking, you know, ahead and seeing what to watch for. So throughout the game, we're communicating, you know, tweeting things out as well for our media to see outside of just our organization of things that they can use in their note as well. So we're very collaborative with our, you know, our staff writers as well as, you know, our media on that.
Perfect. Thank you, Taylor. I appreciate all your time. Students, again, get those questions in, and Jake, going to send it back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jerry. Taylor, we talked a little bit about your journey, you know, from Mississippi State to Alabama to now the Vikings. What do you feel that you benefited from doing the jobs that you did in college? You were working at Mississippi State, working in the different athletic departments. How did that help you become the best employee you could be today?
Yeah, I think that had kind of gave me, you know, a base of what this role really looks like from, you know, going at different levels. At the collegiate level, it's a little bit different from the league level, but it all transfers. And I think that's the biggest thing, you know, the writing that you do in college. We did write kind of like those recap, you know, game summaries. from the game. So it was cool to kind of help with that. And as well as like some of the skills that we had to do, looking up different stats, following, the game on the different stat sites, and then, live tweeting in game as well. So a lot of those skills I feel like really transferred and prepared me to be able to do this role at this level.
So not only did you graduate college, but you took the next step, got your master's degree. Was that something that you wanted to do? Was that something that maybe some advisors or professors said, hey, this would be a good move in the profession that you're getting into? And at the end of the day, would you go back and do it again?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did want to eventually get my master's. I wasn't sure quite when. Both of my parents have their master's, so it was a goal of mine to be like them. I mean, my parents are probably my biggest motivator, supporters, to the reason why I am who I am today, and so I strive to be like them. And so I think I wanted to get my master's, and then when the opportunity came for me to decide, hey, do you want to go try to find a job or do you want to continue to learn? I took that opportunity to continue to learn. And I think it was the best, the best opportunity that was for me at that time. I wanted to dive deeper into PR, learn more about the strategy behind different decision making. And so Alabama's program really stuck out to me. And yeah, I would 100% do it all over again and go back. I mean, I really enjoyed school, so I feel like it was an easy choice for me to continue on that path.
And then last question here, kind of focused on your journey to where you are today. We learned that you interned at ESPN. I think when you're thinking about working in sports, if you don't want to work for a professional team, that ESPN, at least it was for me, was kind of like, that would be an awesome job to have. You watch it, I watched it growing up, watching SportsCenter growing up, seeing all these different shows and sports on ESPN was kind of like this would be a great place to work and be involved in the sports. What did you take from that experience working at a network like that, and then being able to in turn use those skills in your job today?
Yeah, ESPN was something that, I wanted to work for that company as well. And so I actually started out doing the Disney College program. I'd 100% recommend it if anybody's interested in doing that. So I started there, and then I was like, I knew I wanted to work for the company, so I just continued to apply. And I got the opportunity early 2020, and then as the world kind of changed when COVID-19 pandemic kind of came into play, it was I wasn't able to be on campus. So I was never able to really be on site and kind of get that full experience. But ESPN and the communications department there was huge about giving me different opportunities virtually. So I virtually interned for them. I interned for them for 6 weeks in the beginning, and it was extended through the fall. So I was able to kind of have 2 internships there with them, and it was a really cool opportunity. I met founder of ESPN via Zoom. Still to this day, honestly, I haven't met a lot of people in person, but we're still connected. But being able to collaborate with them, work on those different releases for publicizing College Game Day was huge. And then working with NFL, ESPN NFL talent. I remember, moderating some press conferences, coordinating some, interviews for different on-air talent. So that was really cool. And so that writing and that, interview prepping and moderating prepared me for this job that I have today, because I still do a lot of those things just for, athletes versus talent. So that was a really cool opportunity, and I'm so grateful for ESPN. And it was huge to be a part of that, the worldwide leader in sports. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time there, and it really helped me to prepare for the role I'm in today.
So not only do you have your job now, but you've had experience in Mississippi State, Alabama, ESPN, and probably I assume some other volunteer and little internships along the way. The idea of networking is so prevalent in, especially in sports, but it was something that I sure it was stressed to you in college. It was stressed to both Nathan and I about getting out there and meeting as many people as you can. So, in doing all of these different jobs that you've done and internships and part-time jobs, how important is networking, and how has that kind of stayed consistent through all the different experiences that you've had?
Yeah, networking is huge, because you never know who someone knows. And so, I kind of look at networking as like relationship building. So I go into networking as, hey, I want to just kind of get to know you, your background, not kind of going into it like, hey, how can you help me get to where I want to be, in the beginning. So I kind of look at it as, hey, I want to build a relationship with this person and continue to grow, because I think that the more that people can speak to, the person you are, it's easy to, kind of put that recommendation forward and, expand their network into your network, so your network continues to expand. So I think networking is huge, and building those relationships, maintaining them. To this day, I kind of still send, hey, just checking in, hope you're doing all right, hope work's going well. Or if I see someone write a really cool article or a piece, I'm like, hey, like that was awesome, I saw that, that's really cool. If I want to learn more about it, I'm like, hey, like how did you do that? What was kind of your planning behind it? So I think networking is huge, and it opened the door for me, to kind of come up to the Vikings as well. So yeah, definitely, kind of reach out. I'd say it is a little bit scary to do so. But I feel like the more that you do it, and the more that you put yourself out there, the better it'll be for you.
There's so many ways to get experience and internships and volunteer time in so many different fields, which just by reading your bio there, you could tell you did a lot of that. How important is it to do that, especially for somebody who's in high school or college that might not know what they want to do yet, to find that niche that they like, but also at the same time finding stuff that they don't like? So how important is it for those students who are still looking for that job that they want to go out and volunteer and take internships as much as they can to find that one thing that they like to do?
I think it's huge. I've done some internships, or, had some opportunities that, I thought could have been a cool career path for me. And it turned out, like it wasn't the right path for me. It wasn't that I didn't necessarily like it, but I had a passion for doing what I do now. So I think it's important to figure out what you don't see yourself doing in your career as much as it is of what you do see yourself, because honestly, I take from every experience that I've had of things that I particularly like doing, or some things that, hey, it wasn't my favorite, but I did learn from it, and I can take it into my next opportunity that I have. So I think it's huge to take those different opportunities, to step outside of your comfort zone. You never really know what type of careers are, out there. I feel like once I got to the Vikings, I didn't realize how many different opportunities that there were, in an NFL team. So, taking those opportunities, learning from those, take from those experience, even the ones that you didn't particularly enjoy, because they could be beneficial to you in the long run.
Absolutely. I got some more questions from some students coming in, so I'm going to send it over to Nathan for that question.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you again, Jake. And actually, I'm going to steal the spotlight here. I have a personal question based on some of the stuff you've been saying and just thinking here. I'm sure you would describe yourself as still pretty early in your career, just based on reading, your bio and the experience you have. But do you have any like long-term career goals that, you haven't reached yet? You talked about it growing up, you try to write plays. I mean, are you going to get out of the sports world and go write a play? What's the long-term career goal that you might have, Taylor, and how do you set yourself up, I guess, to go reach that goal?
Yeah, I think the playwriting came from as a child. I think every child wanted to be on Disney Channel growing up. So that was kind of like my thought when I was young. I wanted to do that. But yeah, my ultimate career goal is to lead my own department. I want to be a chief communications officer. I want to be that team spokesperson for a company organization. And I think that taking those different opportunities and, learning as much as I can, being really a sponge and, being so early in my career, absorbing everything, taking every opportunity that's handed to me, I think is huge. But yeah, my long-term goal is definitely to be a team spokesperson, chief communications officer.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And you're probably right. I'm sure, the vast majority of kids that watch Disney Channel thought that they were the next star and, they could draw the little Mickey Mouse head thing. I don't know how.
Yeah,
pretty bad.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
But I don't think they do that anymore. But we have a question here from Brandon. Brandon's curious, what are some preferred experiences or prerequisites to work in a position like yours? What was some of the experience that I guess was required, some, suggested? How would you describe that or answer that? And then maybe can you give us some other titles or similar positions to what you do, as a communications coordinator?
Yeah, I think for my role specifically, getting that experience like in an athletic department, or not necessarily even an athletic department at this stage. I think a lot of teams are kind of going more towards that, like more well-rounded, so working more on the business and the football side. But I think getting as much like writing experience as you can is huge, because we write several releases daily, and some that might not even make it out, but just getting that writing experience is huge. And also like working in your school's athletics department, or if you have opportunities to work at like the high school level. I know sometimes, or I've heard now, at least my alma mater has like a communications person that kind of works for that school. So like kind of getting those opportunities to promote, and just really diving deep into the football world. And as far as like some titles that are similar to mine, I mean, there's communications associates, there's internships, assistants, things like that, that kind of got me to where I am today as a communications coordinator. But I think the biggest thing for being in a communications field is definitely like that writing experience, for sure.
You mentioned internships, and it kind of sparked a question in my mind that I think the students will appreciate. What time of year, if I'm thinking I want to work for an NFL team, like I want an internship in the NFL, like when should the students probably be looking for these positions? I know different teams kind of have different strategies with that, maybe. So maybe you can only speak to what the Vikings do and what you've seen. Is it training camp? Is it the season? Is it based on the semesters and the school year? What have you kind of seen, with your time with the Vikings, and how the internship program works there?
Yeah, so with the Vikings, we have training camp internships in different departments. So I think that's one area that a lot of students kind of get started in. And then specifically with communications, we have like a game day internship kind of program where we have students come and they help us out on game days. So they're there helping us set up the press box, kind of answering questions from media that, where do I go for this? Or and then after the games, helping us like transcribe like press conferences and interviews that happen at post game. So kind of starting there. And then as far as like an internship specifically for the Vikings, we do an associateship program, which is kind of like a leadership development program where it's a year-long internship where you start in June and you end in May of the next year. And so you get that full, training camp, game day, and then, a full season with the team. And I think it's huge. It's very beneficial. Our posting usually goes out kind of towards the end of the season, is usually when we post. And then I've seen other teams that post it once season ends, kind of around this time too. I think every team does it differently, but it usually comes towards like that end of the season, around this time frame.
No, I think that's great information for our students, that are interested in that as a career path. The last question I have for me and our students, and I appreciate all of your insight and your answers, is, you work in an industry, you think about during the season, you're definitely working on the weekends because the games are on the weekends. So, how do you find that balance? Like people in today's world always work-life balance. Like you can't just, bury yourself in your work and not have anything, that you can step away and relax. Like, so how do you personally find that? Maybe it could be an encouragement for students as well as they try to think about finding a balance in school and then as they get jobs going forward.
Yeah, work-life balance is huge. I think the biggest thing for me specifically is finding, kind of prioritizing, what do I know that needs to get done right now, or what can I kind of hold off to go, to go for a walk, at the end of the day, or, to go to the gym, doing something that you enjoy doing is huge, and not being, so like, okay, work, work, work. Work is very important, but it'll always be there. And so, just kind of prioritizing, okay, making a list of things that, I can do during this time frame during the day. And then once I accomplish those, I'm going to reward myself with watching, an episode of like something on Netflix or something, so I think having that balance is important. So figuring out ways to kind of prioritize, your schoolwork or your work, and figuring out how to kind of, do things that you still like to enjoy outside of that as well.
Totally unrelated question, but you threw it up there. It's like a softball. I got to just hit. Netflix. What's your show on Netflix? How do you relax? Where do you go into on Netflix there?
Yeah, so I am watching Love is Blind right now. I know it's probably like, that reality TV, but it is so good. So that's what I'm watching right now. I just finished You. You is a really good show I liked, but yeah, Love is Blind. I'm excited to kind of watch a couple episodes today.
I've actually seen that because my wife will watch that. So I have seen some of those episodes. It's crazy. I'm sure the students didn't expect to get, show recommendations as well, but you never know what you're going to get when you tune in for an episode of Before the Snap. On behalf of myself and the students, Taylor, thank you so much for your answers, and your insight, your advice. I'm sure Jake has a couple more things before we wrap up, but I just want to thank you again for being a part of the program today.
Of course. Thank you.
So
Thanks,
Jake,
Nathan.
back to you.
Yes, thanks, Nathan. Thanks to all our students who asked questions today as well. A couple more questions here from my end, Taylor. And the first one is, being a part of an NFL team, working in sports, you get to take part in some cool things. You mentioned player appearances and going out to different community events. But in your short time in the NFL, and we can even go back to college for this question, when you retire at the end of the end of your career, you're talking to your grandkids and they say, what was your favorite moment that you got to be a part of up until right now? What would you say your most favorite on the field moment, event, cool behind the scenes things that you've gotten to be a part of?
Yeah, on the field, I'd say being a part of the greatest comeback in NFL history. I think that was huge. Everybody was really believing in our team, and our team believed in themselves. And so that was really cool to see. Coming back from 33-0 was huge. So I'd say that was my favorite on the field moment. Off the field, last season as an intern, actually, I was air associate. I was able to help promote our girls flag football efforts. So being able to be a part of that, and that moment was huge because I'm a huge advocate for women in sports, and especially girls and women that want to play these different sports as well. Growing up, I feel like women can play sports just as well, or do anything as well. So I loved being a part of that. That was a huge moment, and it just kind of realized, that was kind of like, okay, this is kind of why I get into this industry to help make moments happen like this. So
very, very cool. Those both sound like, obviously, being a part of a historic event, an NFL record up until this point is very cool. And then, there's sometimes those behind the scenes moments off the field, doing the work, what your job is, promoting something like girls flag and seeing the impact that the game has on so many different people is super important. And we talk a lot about how important the game of football is, not only to those who play it, but to those who work in it, coach it, watch it on TV. What are some of those life lessons you think the game of football has taught those who do those things, and some of the things you've seen on a day-to-day basis of how important the game is?
Yeah, I mean, it teaches you like the importance of like dedication, and really just that love for what you do is huge. You see it, the coaches love coming to work every day, players love coming to work, staff loves coming to work every day. So, that opportunity to continue to grow and get better and continue to look forward, to each week and what it has to offer is huge. And not letting something like a little bit of adversity come, like, it kind of knock you down. It kind of like pushes you forward to be like, hey, I'm going to be my best self moving forward in that next day and that next week. So
awesome. All right, well, we're going to move now into our rapid fire question segment. I got 6 questions here for you. First thing that comes to mind. You ready?
Sure.
All right. Number 1, LinkedIn. Great way to network or just another social media app?
Great way to network.
Number 2, GPA on a resume. Leave it on or keep it off?
I'd say keep it off.
Number 3, social media accounts, public or private?
Public.
Number 4, jeans at work. All day, every day, never, or only on casual Fridays?
All day, every day.
Number 5, coin toss, heads or tails?
Heads.
All right. And then finally, you score a touchdown, your go-to touchdown celebration.
They're gritty.
I had to figure that was going to be, that's been a very popular answer for us this year, especially from the folks who are employees of the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know why that seems to be the answer, but that is the one we get most of the time. So thank you so much for that. Last question here, wrapping up, and it's the last question we do, and I do when we do a program here at the Hall of Fame. This is always the last question we like to ask because I think it's a good way to send everybody home with a certain message. If there's one thing you want people who watch today to take away, one thing they can remember, what is that one piece of advice, that one nugget of information you want them to leave with?
Keep striving. Keep going, being persistent in any and everything that you do, because you never know where it'll lead you. And it's important to have that, persistence and, so yeah, keep striving and keep going and trying to reach those goals.
All right. With that, we're going to wrap up this installment of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series today, featuring Taylor Garner, the communications coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. Again, Taylor, thank you so much for being part of the program today, taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us, talk with students all about your career.
Of course. No, thank you for the opportunity. And I appreciate all the questions from you guys as well as the students. Definitely reach out on LinkedIn. I'm always willing to connect and meet different people and grow my network. So definitely reach out.
Well, you heard it there. Reach out if you're tuning in. Reach out, connect, ask more questions on LinkedIn. To all of our viewers today, make sure you're subscribing, liking, following, whatever you might have to do on social media to all of the Pro Football Hall of Fame accounts, as well as the Minnesota Vikings, to see all the great things that they're doing up in Minnesota and their surrounding area. If you're a podcast listener, make sure you subscribe to our podcast here at the Hall of Fame called The Mission, hosted by our great friend, Before the Snap guest himself, Jameer Howerton, as he's gearing up for some awesome interviews coming up here as we lead into getting our new class of 2023 enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Upcoming programs, we got 2 programs left this school year. Looking back at college, you don't realize how awesome it is to end your school year in May. Because once you get into the real world, that doesn't happen. But we got 2 programs to round out the school year. Next week, we're going to be speaking with Ty Harley from the New Orleans Saints. And if you do any research on him, you'll realize that he is an awesome individual, a salary cap wizard, some people call him. And one of the reasons the Saints were able to sign some pretty big names this offseason. So going to be an awesome interview. He does a lot of great things with the Saints organization. So we're excited to interview him. As always, the game of football doesn't just happen 18 weeks during the NFL season. It's a full-time 365-day-a-year job. And Taylor, you're just a small but very, very important part of that. So Taylor, thank you for everything you do for the game of football. And truly thank you for everything you indirectly do for us here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, including being a guest today.
Of course. Thanks for the opportunity. This is fun.
To everybody who tuned in today, thank you so much. We hope to see you right here next time on the YouTube Hall of Fame.